Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about what life was like during the Middle Ages and some of the jobs and activities that they did during that time, and really just what society was all about. So, we're going to start with the trades and the guilds and some of the jobs that they had. A lot of people at that time were farmers, not everybody, but there were a lot of farmers. And they had a new plow called the Karuka, which led to a huge growth of farming villages. People had to work together to buy the iron that was needed to make the plow, and then they shared the team of animals needed to pull the plow. But this is going to make their jobs a lot easier, and it's going to make it so that they can plant more, they can harvest more, they can make more food, so then they can make more money. And we've talked about this three field rotation, where you have to let one field rest every year so that you don't take all the nutrients out of that field. So that kind of covers the farming aspects of that time period. In the cities, the towns were surrounded by stone walls and they were really cramped and very dirty. Pollution is a big problem because there's no running water, there's no bathrooms. So everybody went to the bathroom in a bucket in their house and then they dumped that out in the street. And you were sometimes walking through 2, 3, 4 feet of animal waste and human waste. So it's really dirty, stinky cities. Fire was also an issue because the houses were so close together and they were made of materials that were really flammable, like hay and clay and things. So those fire was always a risk for them. People started to kind of organize themselves into these business groups to kind of stick together. So they were like what we call a union today, they called a guild. And so all the bakers were in a guild together, all the blacksmiths were in a guild together, all the carpenters worked together. And so it allowed them to do a lot of things for each other. One, it set the prices. So one blacksmith couldn't say, I'm going to charge you 50, and another one say, well, I'll only charge you 20. Every blacksmith had the same price no matter who you were and where you went. And that way, it forced you to be a really good blacksmith if you wanted people to give you business. Now, let's say you want a job and you want to become a blacksmith at this time period. You had to go through 3 steps to become any job that you wanted. You had to go through these 3 steps. But let's just say we're pretending we want to be a blacksmith. So the first step was around the ages of 12 to 15, the time period where we would call maybe like high school, you would be an unpaid apprentice. So you were the assistant and you worked for free, but they housed you and they fed you. And the person would teach you the trade of being a blacksmith. So it might last anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So if let's say you were becoming a baker, it's probably going to be closer to 3 years. A blacksmith or a goldsmith will be closer to 7 years, depending on the difficulty of the job. But that whole time you work for free and you just learn the job. Then, as a young adult, you went out into the world as a journeyman. So, this would be like our version of college. So, they learned the trade and they traveled around the entire country. You earned wages for work because you would stop in one city and be a blacksmith for a couple months, learn from that guy. You go to another city and be a blacksmith for a couple months, learn from that person. And so they paid you, but it wasn't a long term job. You traveled around and learned from everybody all the different techniques that everybody was using. Now, the last thing you're going to do is when you want to open your own shop, you have to prove that you can be a master at your job. So you would go in front of the entire guild or the union of your peers who all did the same job, and you would present a masterpiece of your job. So as a blacksmith, you would present the best piece you could possibly produce. They would look it over. They would say, okay, yes, this guy is good enough. Now they can open their own shop and they can have an apprentice, and the system starts all over again. So this was really common for every single job that we saw during the Middle Ages. Now, nobody can really read during this time period. So if you had a business or a shop, you had to put a flag out front so that everybody knew what your job was. So if I'm walking down the street and I see this flag, I know that's where they make ale or beer because we have the hoppers, that's what they use here, and the grain on the outside in order to make it. And they use these flags in all different ways. They had different colors, different designs. So this one down here would have been the physician, okay? And they did a lot of different things that modern day physicians don't do. So you can see with the flags, they have all different colors on their flags. This one here has a book, which probably means that this is a teacher of some kind. You see this one here is a bower. They make bows and arrows. This one back here was an armorer, so they make the armor for soldiers. So they put a picture, one, two, or three pictures on their flag so that the people, when they walked down the street, knew what your shop was, okay? So you see back here, this is the scissors, and you would think, well, that's the barber. Yep, but guess what else the barber did? The barber was also your dentist, okay? So each flag has a different set of unique colors and a different picture on it to show you what they did, okay? So you can see here, this one's the winemaker, okay? So each flag was very unique. So this would be a typical flag of that time period. So I'm going to show you guys your assignment, and you have today and tomorrow to do this assignment, okay? And it's due by the end of the day tomorrow. So you're going to choose a job from the list below. So if you're not in class, if you're in class, I'm going to assign this to you. If you're not in class watching the video, you're just going to choose a job. So let's say that you choose shoemaker. Go to step 2, you're going to research that job and write 3 to 5 sentences about what the person did in the Middle Ages. When you Google it though, you need to make sure you put Middle Ages shoemaker or Middle Ages baker, because we don't want you to get a present day or a modern day description. We want to know what they did back then. The third thing you're going to do is you're going to design a flag for your job using only 3 pictures, no words to represent your job. Most people couldn't read, so they relied on those pictures. Your flag has to be hand-drawn, no computer flags, okay? I'm not grading you on your ability to draw, I'm grading you on your effort, okay? So here's mine, and yes, I put the word tailor because I wanted you to know what I was doing, but you don't need to put your word on there. So I designed a flag with all different colors on it. I put pieces of clothing, the scissors, the thread, and now you know that I'm a tailor, okay? So you look at my flag, and I've got at least 3 pictures, and you know exactly what I do. So you have your sentences and your flag that are due by the end of the day tomorrow. If you have questions, send me an email.